Going back to 1924, Dad was in hot pursuit of Mother with the idea of matrimony. Here's a picture of them at that time. Dad was a farmer and had a farm in partnership with his brother Bob out at Eagle Hill west of Olds. Mother had been a teacher and then turned to nursing when she graduated from the Vancouver General. She and Dad got married shortly thereafter. And in 1925, I came along. Mother's brother, Jack, lived in Olds. He ran a grocery store, and at about that time he had a young son called Ronnie. So Dad and at the farm at Eagle Hill, I had a wagon that we used. It was a tin box, and it kind of hurt my ankles as I tried to push it along with one leg. My grandmother lived with us, along with grandfather, and it was a year later that Betty showed up, and she had the job of looking after us. Looks like at lunchtime Dad was taking a look at Betty to see how things were going. Eventually the farm was sold, and Dad moved to Crossfield, where he sold John Deere implements until the Depression came along. By this time too we were joined by Kay and Mary, and in Crossfield too there was Mr. Sutherland, the town clerk, who would come over on Sundays to ride Dad's horse. He was an old English cavalry officer, and this was his pride and joy. He eventually bought the horse. After a bit we moved to Olds. The Depression got a little deeper. My room was in the dormer upstairs, too hot in summer and too cold in winter. By this time we were growing up a bit, and the six of us posed for a picture on the sidewalk. We lived across from the fairgrounds, and I could get in for free if we showed a cow or the calf, and or together. Here Doug and I get ready to show it. Lorraine Prestwich lived next door, and a pretty young lady, and she attracted a number of boys who, some of them became my friends. One was Lawrence Jensen, the son of the town policeman and town foreman. He eventually joined the Air Force, and I lost track of him. Well, Dad eventually got some grant from the government, and we moved to the Spruces north of Innisfail. An old stopping house on the stage route. This is a look at the backyard in those days. Managed to gather a few cows. Later we built a granary up on the hill, but the old outside toilet served us for many years. The front door of the Spruces was very seldom used, but it was a good place for a picture. At Mother's insistence, the family had a portrait taken, and this was about 1943, sometime in there. By this time I was working at Calder's farm. Our transportation was Piccadilly and a sleigh in winter and a buggy in the summer, and sometimes of course they overlapped. Learned to ride a horse. This is Piccadilly and the dog. I was bucked off more times than I care to admit, but she served us well for a long time. Across the highway from the house was a large flat, and Dad tried to break this with horses. He did some, but it wasn't very successful because the weather was hot and the flies were bad. Haying time at Calder's was always busy. Bill Calder ran the sweep, which swept up the hay and brought it into the stacker, where I had to pile it up. This is a stack that we finished. Very soon the fields were dotted with these things. Punkin and Calder's owned a farm out east of Innisfail, and we called it Punkin Center. During the winter, you'd have to haul the hay from there to the home farm in Little Red Deer. Sometimes we did this with a truck, other times with Bess and Bell and the horses. After lunch, it was generally to sit in the sunshine when there was, so this was an opportunity for a photo as well. When harvest time came, the work got hard. The binder, George Calder generally ran that, although in this picture Bill has the tractor hooked to it. And stooking was hard work, and it went along very good, but it was hard on the back. Here we stopped for a bit of a break. When thrashing time came, the young fellows on the crew enjoyed loading their bundle racks up as high as they could, and it was a matter of pride as to who could get the biggest load. Sometimes they'd tip over, and that was not too good. This was our thrashing crew the year I worked with them. This doesn't happen very often anymore, the thrasher and the working at it. I look at the bunkhouse at Punkin Center. There was no buildings other than a barn and a mobile bunkhouse, which was a forerunner of the modern trailer. Steel wheels and a very bumpy ride when you had to pull it around. Bill and I took this self-portrait as we were having lunch one day. If you watch, you can see the string that goes to the camera shutter. Calder's had a nice farm. One fall we had a real snowfall. This was in about the 7th of September. It certainly made stooking difficult because all that snow pushed the grain to the bottom ground. My last year of school, I decided to go to Red Deer. It was a dormitory for rural children. That's where we stayed. In the lower floor was the kitchen and the dining room, and this was the group that sat at our table. Bill Morton from Innisfail is on the lower right. Our corner here, Bill Johnson reading the magazine, and Dick Whidden from Markerville polishing his shoes. This was a dorm picture. In 2002 there was a reunion, and it was amazing how many of them showed up. Following school, Betty and Bill Calder got married, and the old house was full of roses, wildflowers, and lots of people. We had visits from my mother's two sisters, Bess and Kate. My grandfather died when we moved to Olds, and grandmother spent some time at the coast, and then after breaking her hip, she came to live with us in the farm. Here she's posing with Doug beside the lean-to on the old house. That last winter I decided that I would go to work, do something else besides farming, so we got a job at the Highwood Logging Company west of Turner Valley. This is the married quarters and the mill here, and I ran the little tractor for a while, pulling logs out of the bush. And eventually the final drives on the tractor gave out, and that finished that. Inside of the mill, on a quiet day, it was powered by an old steam tractor. There were a number of us there. This chap Alec was a real drifter, but he and I worked together considerably, and as you can see, the snow was deep. For a while, when the mill was shut down, we went falling without much success. The road into the mill was just a back trail, and this was the first time I'd seen the road. The company looked like it was getting in difficulty, so when the new cat arrived, it broke down, so we left. And then the next year I left home and went to Vancouver.